Nigeria has tested almost 3 million samples out of its population, confirming almost 200,000 cases of COVID-19. In September 2020, the WHO announced the emergency use authorization of some antigen-based rapid diagnostic tests, RDTs, to help in testing for COVID-19. However, RDT does not replace the use of the polymerase chain reaction, the PCR. As schools reopen and the country battles a third wave, how does the RDT help stem the spread? Well, joining us now is Mr. Anthony Ahumibe, Senior Laboratory Technical Advisor at the NCDC. He joins me virtually from Abuja. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Millicent. Good to be here.
Glad to have you. When and where are RDTs required?
RDTs are required basically when you want to know your COVID results quickly. In terms of where you need to use them, we've advised on using them in congregate settings. That's where people stay together for a long time. We also advocate that people use them where PCR is not available, and also in medical emergencies. So these are areas where they can be used.
So in terms of bridging the gap to trace and control the spread of the virus, how reliable are they?
I will say they are as good as the regular testing, the PCR, though we know the PCR is the gold standard. To make sure that we get the results that are as reliable and accurate as the PCR, there are a lot of things we do in combination. That's why we have the algorithm. The algorithm gives us a combination of tests or a process by which the results are actually made very reliable. In addition to that, we also ask people to look at clinical history and then travel history as much as possible to be able to get a very, very reliable result. But ultimately, if all this is done with quality in mind, you can get a result as good as PCR.
Can anyone use RDTs?
Yes, anybody can use RDTs, really. But what we've asked is that RDT be administered by a very trained personnel. At the moment, the kits we have, the antigen RDTs we have, you still have to collect sample through the nose, essentially using the nasopharyngeal method to get samples, which is a bit invasive for a lay person who hasn't done the training. Again, I've mentioned a few things about algorithm and all that. So you need somebody who is trained to be able to administer this. But in terms of who this test is administered to, it's open to everybody who wants it.
In terms of frequency, how often should it be used? And this is also, at what points can we say, okay, it's a must? Even though you've taken or you've tested using RDT, it's now time to use the PCR to confirm a case.
Yeah, generally, because of our population, it's more of a risk assessment because RDTs are meant to allow people do a test and get their results quickly. So at any point somebody feels he has come in contact with somebody who has had COVID or who has COVID symptoms, it's always advised to check yourself quickly so that you can be isolated and get into treatment. Beside that, there are times where you need confirmation using RT-PCR. And again, I mentioned the algorithm that has been put out by NCDC. We advocate for confirmation using PCR when an RDT result is actually negative, but the person is still symptomatic, maybe still having fever or cough, or has a travel history, or has had contact with somebody who recently had COVID. In such a situation, you are asked to confirm using a PCR.
Okay, so finally, I mean, we've been saying RDTs, rapid diagnostic test. Just expatiate, about what this is and, what it does to the COVID-19 virus.
So the good thing about RDTs is that it's something we needed to allow us to ramp up testing. PCR needed a lot of technological input, needed some technique in terms of manpower. But PCR has the added advantage beyond this in giving us an opportunity to get our results latest within 15 minutes. Beside that, it's a point of care, so it allows you to get into the communities, do your tests, which is actually what we are looking at, community testing. It's integration of testing, so that at the end of the day, everybody who needs tests can have access, and it allows us to actually continue with our strategy to quickly detect, isolate, and then treat those who have COVID. In which case, it helps us improve on our numbers in terms of managing people and being able to manage the pandemic.
So, Mr. Humibe, you're saying essentially as schools reopen, organizations with limited restrictions in place, like the non-pharmaceutical protocols, this does benefit them?
Yeah, it really does. The schools are one of the congregate settings that NCDC continues to ask that RDTs be deployed. First and foremost, having an opportunity to regularly and routinely test the staff, both the academic and the non-academic staff, because these are the people who actually move out of the school environment regularly and have a larger contact than the students. So this is one area it will help. Again, it's also useful for the school to use it to test anybody who has febrile illness, at least just to rule out COVID. If it's malaria, then it becomes easy. And again, like I said, the fact that this is accessible, NCDC can always help the schools in training those who are available to reach, and it will help us just to make sure that we don't have sudden closure of schools when you have one case that is positive.
All right, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Mr. Anthony Ahumebe is a Senior Laboratory Technical Advisor with the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Thank you for your expertise on this issue.
Thank you.